In a 2015 interview with People magazine, Jennifer Aniston, a Hollywood icon whose name is synonymous with charm, talent, and resilience, offered a rare peek into her inner world. When asked whom she would most like to meet, she replied, "I'd like to meet the Dalai Lama. From what I've read about him, from books and lectures, he seems to be the embodiment of pure joy, absolute enlightenment." This wasn't a throwaway comment from a celebrity filling an interview slot. It was a deliberate, reflective statement that hinted at a deeper yearning for meaning, peace, or perhaps a respite from the relentless spotlight of fame. Yet, despite this expressed desire, there's no public evidence as of March 7, 2025, that Aniston ever met the Dalai Lama, the revered spiritual leader of Tibetan Buddhism. What does this moment reveal about Aniston, the Dalai Lama's appeal, and the broader cultural currents at play? Let's embark on a comprehensive journey to unpack this statement, its context, and its implications, spanning personal, philosophical, and societal dimensions. To fully grasp the weight of Aniston's remark, we must first situate it within her life in 2015. By this point, she was 46 years old and a veteran of the entertainment industry. Her breakout role as Rachel Green in Friends, 1994-2004, had made her a global sensation, earning her millions of fans and a permanent place in pop culture. After the sitcom ended, she transitioned successfully into films, starring in hits like Marley and Me, 2008, The Breakup, 2006, and Horrible Bosses, 2011. By 2015, she was promoting She's Funny That Way, a comedy that showcased her enduring appeal, and had recently married actor Justin Theroux, signaling a new chapter in her personal life. Yet, beneath this glossy exterior, Aniston's journey had been far from smooth. Her 2005 divorce from Brad Pitt, after a high-profile marriage that captivated the world, unleashed a decade of tabloid obsession. The media painted her as the wronged woman, perpetually pitted against Pitt's new partner, Angelina Jolie, in a narrative that refused to fade. Headlines speculated endlessly about her love life, her decision not to have children, and her emotional state, often casting her as a figure of pity despite her professional triumphs. In 2015, though newly married and seemingly content, she was still navigating this invasive scrutiny, a burden few could endure without seeking some form of solace or perspective. It's in this context that her mention of the Dalai Lama takes on added significance. Her words, "I'd like to meet the Dalai Lama," suggest a desire to connect with someone who embodies a different way of being, a counterpoint to the chaos and superficiality of Hollywood. Her reference to books and lectures indicates she wasn't merely name-dropping a famous figure but had actively engaged with his ideas. The Dalai Lama's teachings, often centered on cultivating inner peace regardless of external turmoil, might have offered Aniston a lifeline, a way to process the relentless public narrative and find a sense of agency over her own story. Her description of him as the embodiment of pure joy, absolute enlightenment, paints him as an ideal, a beacon of what she might have aspired to amidst her own challenges. To understand why Aniston singled out the Dalai Lama, we need to explore who he is and why he resonates so powerfully, especially with figures like her. Tenzin Gyatso, the 14th Dalai Lama, was born in 1935 in a remote Tibetan village and identified at age 2 as the reincarnation of his predecessor. By 1950, he assumed leadership of Tibet, only to flee to India in 1959 after a failed uprising against Chinese rule. Since then, he's lived in exile in Dharamshala, becoming a global advocate for peace, human rights, and Tibetan autonomy while eschewing violence in favor of dialogue. What sets the Dalai Lama apart is his ability to transcend his role as a religious leader. He's a monk rooted in the Gelug school of Tibetan Buddhism, yet his message, delivered with a disarming smile and infectious laugh, appeals universally. Books like The Art of Happiness, 1998, which Aniston might have read, distill his philosophy into practical wisdom. Happiness is a skill, cultivated through compassion, gratitude, and detachment from ego. His lectures, often available in recordings or at public events, blend humor with profound insights, making esoteric Buddhist concepts accessible to Western audiences. By 2015, he'd spent decades meeting world leaders, e.g., Nelson Mandela, George W. Bush, scientists and celebrities, earning a Nobel Peace Prize in 1989 and a reputation as a living symbol of resilience. For Aniston, the Dalai Lama's appeal likely stemmed from this blend of joy and depth. Hollywood, with its focus on image and competition, can be a soul-crushing place, even for its brightest stars. The Dalai Lama, who radiates contentment despite losing his homeland, offers a stark contrast. His emphasis on pure joy, a phrase Aniston echoed, might have struck her as a rare quality in her world, where happiness is often tied to external validation. Absolute enlightenment, meanwhile, suggests she saw him as someone who'd mastered life's complexities, a guide for navigating her own. This admiration wasn't unique to her. Stars like Richard Gere, a close friend of the Dalai Lama, and Sharon Stone had long been drawn to him, but Aniston's articulation of "it felt personal, not performative." Aniston's comment didn't emerge in a vacuum. It reflects a broader trend of Hollywood's fascination with Eastern spirituality, particularly Buddhism and the Dalai Lama. Since the 1960s, when the Beatles explored transcendental meditation, Western celebrities have turned to Eastern traditions for meaning, often as an antidote to fame's emptiness. By the 1990s, the Dalai Lama had become a focal point of this movement, thanks to his exile story, his charisma, and the West's growing interest in Tibet. Richard Gere, for instance, met the Dalai Lama in the 1980s and became a vocal Buddhist, co-founding the Tibet House in New York. Sharon Stone attended his events, as did Goldie Hawn and Harrison Ford, who narrated a 1997 documentary about him. This Hollywood Buddhist phenomenon peaked in the late 90s and early 2000s, with events like the 1993 Free Tibet concert in San Francisco drawing A-listers. By 2015, the trend had matured, less about splashy activism and more about personal exploration. But the Dalai Lama remained a touchstone. Aniston's connection to this culture is subtle. She's not known for public spiritual quests like Madonna, Kabbalah, or Tina Turner, Buddhism, yet her social circle overlapped with this world. Gere, a Friends guest star in 2002, might have influenced her indirectly, though there's no evidence he introduced her to the Dalai Lama's work. Her yoga practice, a staple of her fitness routine, also hints at an openness to Eastern-inspired wellness, a gateway for many to figures like the Dalai Lama. Her 2015 statement thus aligns her with this legacy, but her restraint, she didn't follow it with activism or a pilgrimage, sets her apart as someone whose interest was private, introspective. Given Aniston's expressed desire, why hasn't a meeting with the Dalai Lama been documented? Let's examine the factors at play. Logistical barriers. Meeting the Dalai Lama is no small feat. In 2015, he was 80, still active but increasingly selective with travel due to age. Based in Dharamshala, he hosted teachings and private audiences, but these required planning, applications, travel to India, and alignment with his schedule. His U.S. visits, like one in 2014 to California, drew crowds, but private meetings were rare and prioritized for dignitaries or long-term supporters. Aniston, juggling film shoots and press tours, e.g., for She's Funny That Way, might have found the timing impossible. Even in 2017, when he visited UC San Diego, there's no record of her attending. Aniston's private persona. Aniston's guarded nature is key. Unlike Gere, who wears his Buddhism on his sleeve, she's kept her beliefs low-key. Her 2015 comment was a rare revelation, not followed by public steps like attending a Dalai Lama talk or posting about him when she joined Instagram in 2019. This suggests her admiration was a personal anchor, not a project she needed to externalize. She might have hesitated to pursue a meeting, fearing it would become tabloid fodder. Jennifer seeks enlightenment, undermining its sincerity. The Dalai Lama's accessibility. By 2015, the Dalai Lama's health was a growing concern. After a 2018 prostate procedure, his international trips dwindled, focusing on India-based events. For Aniston to meet him, she'd have needed to travel to Dharamshala, a leap for someone not deeply tied to his cause, or catch him during a diminishing window of U.S. visits. Without a pre-existing relationship, unlike Gear's decades-long bond, her chances were slim. Lack of public evidence. If a meeting occurred privately, it's conceivable it stayed under the radar. Celebrities like Uma Thurman have met him quietly, but Aniston's fame makes secrecy unlikely. Post-2015, social media, e.g. X, would have buzzed with sightings, yet nothing surfaced. This silence strongly suggests no encounter took place. Had Aniston met the Dalai Lama, the implications could have been profound. Personally, it might have deepened her engagement with his teachings, offering tools to cope with fame's pressures. She could have adopted mindfulness practices, influencing her later work, like The Morning Show, where she plays a raw, reflective news anchor. Publicly, a meeting could have elevated her platform, spotlighting the Dalai Lama's message or even Tibet's plight, much as Gear's activism has. A photo of them together, her warm smile alongside his twinkling eyes, would have been iconic, potentially inspiring fans to explore his ideas. Yet, the absence of a meeting doesn't negate her admiration's value. It suggests the Dalai Lama's influence on her was intellectual and emotional, a quiet refuge rather than a transformative event. This fits her pattern. She's a star who thrives on authenticity, not grand gestures. Jennifer Aniston's 2015 People interview moment reveals a woman seeking wisdom amid a life of triumph and trial. Her admiration for the Dalai Lama, rooted in his writings and lectures, reflects a genuine connection to his vision of joy and enlightenment. That it never led to a meeting, due to logistics, privacy, or timing, doesn't diminish its significance. It underscores the Dalai Lama's universal reach and Aniston's depth, proving that even an unrealized wish can resonate deeply. Want me to dig into specific timelines or search X for clues? Let me know.